So the last week and this week, sorry, because I had a meeting with the dean, and afterward, because of these technical issues, the lecture got a little bit late. But it's fine. We'll make up to this in the coming lectures. Okay. So last week I requested you guys to install a particular program, right? A particular program called Anaconda Navigator or Anaconda, right? This is the Python environment that we'll be using uh, for our lectures to understand how the Python system works. We'll be using this uh, Python environment, right? And there, I told you that we will be using something called Jupyter Notebook, right? This kind of integrated development environment. But this is actually a web-based environment. So you can simply open it in your browser, and the advantage of this particular notebook is that so this is kind of interactive. So you can feed your code, and directly you can get the data without taking much time of compiling, right? So have you installed this one? Were you able to install this? Because I need you to work with me, because since we are doing this session online, so rather than looking at my screen, I'd rather allow you to work with this Python code. So have you installed this one? You can answer me in this chat. Have you installed this one? So I will introduce a little bit if you have already installed. So I will a little bit introduce about this system. So you can use this one with me, right? So if you do not have installed this one already, so what you can do is uh, go to your browser and can type anaconda.com download, right? So this one. So this is what you need, and you have to download the system, right? So there's a cloud option as well, but do not use the cloud option, but use this local environment, right? So this is the link that you can download, right? So if you do not have already download this, please download your software from here, right? Let me share it with the whole group of you. Everyone. Okay, this one, right? So please use this link to download and install if you do not have install it already. So once you install this system or the software, you get and once you start it will take like a few seconds. Unlike other software, it will take few seconds, like 10 to 20 seconds to initialize the environment. And once the environment is initialized, you will be directed to a interface like this. So it has almost all these uh, interactive and integrated development environment that you can use to code Python, right? So uh, basically, once you install this one, the advantage is that you don't have to install the requirements that you need to run Python one by one. That is the advantage. So if you have installed, then once you get into this uh, particular interface, then you have something called Jupyter Notebook. This one, right? Not Jupyter Lab. This is a different story, but a link to open Jupyter Notebook, right? So once you click that one, you have to click launch, and again you will be directed to environment like this, right? So you will be directed to your base directory, right? So once you have base directories, something like this in your browser window, so it is at localhost and port is 888, and it will show the folder tree of your computer, the particular driver. Most of the time, this will be where this Jupyter Notebook is installed. So document folder, the C folder, feed C drive will be shown here, right? So I have customized to show it elsewhere, but you can use your driver, right? So once you add this folder tree, next thing that you can do is because we will be using different kind of Python scripts and Jupyter Notebook scripts, create a new folder to have all of your Python scripts there, save them there, right? So you can you see there's a button called new. So once you click new, so you have different or several options to choose from, right? So you can choose this folder, right? So if you create that folder, it will create this untitled folder somewhere in your directory, right? So like this, right? So you can rename this folder by checking the tick box here, right? And it will give option to rename. So I will create this as Python scripts. You can give your own name, right? Okay. Is there, right? And you can go to that folder, and then again you can click new, and there's something called notebook Python 3 IPY kernel, right? This is the notebook type that you want to create, right? This is the interactive do you have any questions? Somebody has unmuted the mic. 0037. Can you hear me? Okay. If you have any questions, you can send through the chat or can directly answer. Okay. So anyway, so this is the environment that you will be seeing. And when you need to create a new notebook, you just click new, and there's something called Python 3 IPY kernel, right? So click that one, and in a new tab, it will open interactive Python environment, right? So you can save this one. Similarly, giving a useful name like this, right? So now you have saved your file, and you can use this environment to do the Python programming. So as an example, I just show you, right? And then if you want to run this particular line, so there's something called run here, right? So you can press run. This is a command, okay? Press run button or shift plus enter, right? So if you press shift plus enter or this run button, it will run this particular line, right? So see, now it has run this code, and it has created the new line to run your codes, right? So what I want you to do is that, so please use this environment if you have already installed to check the things that we discuss here, right? Otherwise, it will be boring to look at your computer screen. Okay. So, have you any questions regarding this initiating the Python environment? I mean, installing Anaconda and initiating this Python notebook. If you have this, I'll give you a few seconds. You can forward any questions you have through the chat. So this environment can be used, as I said, to run any code lines that we are going to discuss throughout this session. Okay, so hopefully you don't have any questions regarding this one, but let me know, or you can tell Mr. Prasad, so he will forward me any questions you have, so I will answer, right? So okay, let's go to the lecture. So this is what we did last week. So we talked about strings, right? So in this particular lecture, we are going to discuss about several uh, Python data types and data structures that we'll be dealing with. So as I mentioned last week, so these Python data structures and data types, they are the building blocks. Everywhere we use, even in complex Python coding, we have to use these data types and data structures. So we discussed about numbers. We discussed about several ways of assigning variables, and then we have to discuss about the strings, the next type of data type and data structures. I mean, maybe I have mentioned this one earlier, but let's refresh a little bit and move forward. Okay, so string is a type of a sequence characters, right? So sequence characters means it you can uh, retrieve information according to the index number of that particular uh, data. I mean, particular word, right? So unlike these other programming languages, I told you that previously, Python has dynamic typing. Dynamic typing means you can assign variables on the go, right? But when you are assigning variables on the go, the other thing that you have to understand is how Python understands that coding, right? So that is actually uh, done by the syntax, right? That is actually done by the syntax. So the Python syntax is, sorry, using single quotes or double quotes that indicates that the particular variable has been assigned a string variable or string data type, right? So this is a string data type. This is also a string data type, but notice that here we have used single quotes. In particular, this particular scenario, we have used double quotes. Doesn't matter, right? It's your preference. But when you have a single quote inside your string, in that case, it's better to use this double quote. You must use these double quotes to indicate that you are wrapping this single quote outside, right? I think last week I also showed you some examples, but we'll see some examples and you will understand what I say. So string syntax is using either single quotes like this or double quotes like this, right? So you can mix it up and use both single quotes and double quotes to wrap the string data if you have already seen a single quote inside, right? Okay. So let me hear this one. Okay. So the other thing is that strings are, as I told you, strings are ordered sequence objects, right? So ordered sequence means we can access to a specific character. Or so this is a word. Let me show you. So this is a word. So these are words, right? So single word, and these are characters. So we can access these characters one by one using a process called indexing and slicing, right? So this allows us to say for some reason you want to grab a single letter out of this or a section of letters, right? A section of letters out of this. So still you can do this. It is possible to use uh, indexing and this slicing to grab subsections, right? So indexing, there is always indexing notation. Uh, excuse me. So you can use this indexing notation, right, to grab certain part of the sequence or this certain part of text, right? So indexing uses this notation, square brackets, right? Square bracket notation is used for indexing, and it can be a single character, or you can choose set of characters or portion of the string from the string that you prefer, right? So that is the overall idea of indexing and slicing. So let's, there's another thing that I want to make you clear. So slicing is little bit different from indexing. So indexing means you are grabbing one letter by one letter, right? So you have a letter, say this one, and you have index those letters. So indexing goes like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So let me show you. So like this. So this is the character, it's the word, right? So this character has this index. So H is 0th index position, E is at first index position, L is at second index position, and the other L is at the third index position, and finally O is at fourth index position, right? So it is sequenced. So my point is, if you use a notation like this, so you can grab this H, right? If you use a notation like this, then you can grab this E, right? So likewise. So there's a reverse index option as well. So if you use -1, apart from this, the size of or the length of the word, it will always grab the last letter, last index letter, right? And if you use -2, second to last index letter. So it doesn't matter the length of the word that you are using. It can be hello, it can be rather longer word like brackets. So if you use -1, it will grab this S. So if you use a word like bracket as an example. So likewise, there's two methods of accessing your string letters. So elements in your string, right? So are you clear about this? If you have any questions, you can ask from the chat box. So before I'm going to move slicing. If you have any questions about indexing, please ask. Of course, we'll be doing some examples, but from this small discussion, if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions later. Right? Okay. Let me move to the next one. So then the slicing. So we discussed about the concept of indexing, and now we have to discuss about the concept of slicing, right? So slicing means, so you are grabbing a subsection, something called subsection, uh, subsection of this string. So that means can be a single character. So indexing, of course, you can grab character by character. You have access to that character by this indexing method. But using slicing, what you can do is you can access single character or multiple characters from anywhere of this particular string, right? So we have to use this string, what you call syntax, right? So everything is about syntax when we are doing programming. So the syntax has start, that means the starting point, and the stop means, sorry, stop means the ending point, and the step, right? Step means that how many letters you are accessing. It can be one by one. It can be two by two. So it depends on your requirement. So I will explain you when we are doing any exercises. So for this particular moment, well, let me tell you. So you have hello, right? So hello is, sorry. So you have hello is there. So hello is there. So this is zeroth index, first, second, third, fourth, right? So if you choose to have step of one, so it will select one by one step by one, right? And if you for some reason select two, this is one, right? This is one, and if you select two, then it will skip this one because it's two, right? So first one is there, so not E, then L, right? And not this L, but this O. So the output will be, the first one is you will get total word, and second one you will get H L O, right? So you are skipping a letter. That is the step size meaning, right? I'll show you some examples. So this is the two basic methods, basic ways of dealing with string type, right? So let's us let's just see some examples using Jupyter Notebook. So you can have your Jupyter Notebooks open if you like. You can have your Jupyter Notebooks open, and you can you can do the examples with me, right? So that is more, I think, effective rather than looking at the screen. Try to do these examples with me, and you will understand, and you will be less sleepy as well, right? So this is I will upload this one to LMS when once it's ready. So these notes, but it will be in PDF format. So you have to do this examples with me right here, right? So I think I did some parts of these examples previously, but let's try and do some other examples as well. So during this particular examples, it said we'll be learning how to create strings, how to print strings, right? As students of ICT, you should know about difference between printing and storing variables in memory, right? So there's printing and storing the variable in memory, two different things. So we'll be discuss about how to print, and then string indexing and slicing, and other string properties and method. So those are the things that will be basically discussed, right? So this is a single word. This is how you define a string. So you can use single quote, right? And if you run this one, now this output one is actually saved in the memory of the computer, right? So it doesn't hold any value because we don't have assigned any kind of variable, right? So we cannot retrieve this data from the computer memory. Just to understand, to show you that the way of creating a string type, I'm using this, right? And this is also a string. Even though there's space in between, even though there are space, doesn't matter in this particular case. It's still a string. It will accept, right? Python will accept. And I told you that during the presentation we have two methods. You can double inverted commas or single quotes, right? Like this. So this is with double quotes. So this particular string is prepared with double quotes. So if you run this one, right, it will still accept, right? Okay. Now you can type this on your Jupyter notebooks, right? And you can see whether the outputs are the same. So the my one has a little bit of descriptions, but uh, the ones you have, you can just type and see what are the outputs, right? Okay. So this next one is a little bit tricky, right? So see that I have used single quotes, but in the middle of this sentence, there is another single quote. So this uh, Python will get confused, right? Because it doesn't know what is the start and what is the end, right? So it will always pick the first single quote as the end. So as you can see, the colors are different. This is black, right? This is brownish color, right? So that means only this part of the code has been identified as a string by Python. So if I run this one, it will end up in an error because there's no uh, ending. I mean, we can use single quotes like this. So instead of that, we can use a mix of single and double quotations, right? So now this is as an example like this. So we can fix it like introducing double quotes to wrap the string, right? And then you can include your single quote inside your sentence, right? So if you run this one, it will run fine. So now Python understands that these two double quotes, those double quotes are the start and ending point of your string, and this single quote will accept by Python as another letter. That's all. Not part of the code, but just as another letter. So that solves the problem of single and double quotes. So this is the way of creating a string. right? Simple string without any variables. Of course, you can assign variables. We will discuss, right? But creating a string simply can be done using single and double quotes. That is the syntax using. Any questions? Any concerns? Okay, so I told you there's a small difference between printing and storing data, right? So we can simply declare a string like this, right? This is what we did previously. So if you run, so it will show, it will go to the memory address that we have declared this string, and it will show. Just grab from here and show, right? So if you have several strings or several outputs, so you see that there's a hello world 1 and hello world 2. So output that we expect might be both of these strings, right? But it doesn't happen like that, right? So if I run this one, only the last entry will be shown like this. See, only the last entry is shown because there's no permanent placeholder for these two strings, right? Like variable, or we are not uh, calling it from the memory, right? So we can solve this problem by printing, right? So it's the same one. Uh, Say if you add, going to add another. So you can add what do you call cells using this plus sign. Okay, so it will add a cell right below the cell that you are working, right? So here I will use same thing with print function. So print. So once the function is understood, it will change the color. So changing sorry, changing color means that Python has identified it's a build option. So if I copy and paste this one here, okay, print again, over to so if I run this one, so it will show, right? Hello world 1, hello world 2, right? Likewise. Now there's this problem doesn't appear where only the last uh, input is shown back. So that is the print function. So print function is available actually across almost all these programming languages that you may have already learned about these things with a different programming language, and the syntax is a little bit different in each programming language. So if you if you have worked with C, so this is printf, right? So but in Python we use this print function directly, so it is easy to remember about what you are doing. So that is about printing strings. Print function can be used for can be used to print any sort of a data type, but I would like to introduce it here with this string type of data. Okay, so we have used print statement or print method to print this string, right? And there's a another option in print. There are a lot of options in a print statement, but one particular thing that will be using very frequently is going to a new line, right? So this is also available in a lot of programming languages. I mean, all the programming languages, uh, more or less similarly. Like C is also you are using backward slash n. So this will create a new line, right? So for as an example, if I use same syntax here, what could happen? It will go like that, right? So similarly, here also I have used a forward slash n, right? This forward slash n will activate a single line, print a separate line option, a new line option, and this two from two print a new line will go to the next line, and this will create an empty line, right? If I run this one, see, so up to this point, it is in the same line, right? So when Python detects the backward slash n, it will create a new line and put this rest of the sentence at the bottom, right? At the new line. And this particular line, since we have not include any kind of string data there, it just will print a new line here, right? So this is a new line. So let me show you what will happen if I remove this one. So if I remove this code and if I run, see that line disappears. But if I reintroduce it again, you can see that new line is available here, right? So this is about printing strings, right? Any questions? I don't think that you have a lot of questions as ICT students regarding this part. We are just discussing the basics of Python, right? It's I think it's almost similar to what you have learned previously with other programming languages, right? So if you have any questions before we move into the string indexing, can you please ask? Please use the chat box. Please use the chat box if you have any questions. No problems? Okay. So let's quickly move on to the next string basics, right? So this is quick function that is helpful when it comes to strings, right? Is something function called len. So len means you can check the length of that particular string, right? So strings are set of characters, right? Set of characters mean it has number of characters. So these number of characters inside the particular string, if you need it for something, then you can use this len function. So if I if I run this, how many characters will be there? What would be the output of len function? Use chat box to send me the answer. So you can use len function, right? Shows the number of characters. So how many characters is in this particular set of strings? Quickly, somebody can somebody send the answer? You can run this one. You run this code in your Python Jupyter notebook, and you can see the answer, and you can send it to me. So what will be the answer? So we are checking the number of characters in this particular string. Somebody, please. Can you answer? Okay, so since nobody reply, I will continue this. So if you run this one, so it will count this space as a character as well, right? Space is also a character. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 characters, right? Including space. So including space, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the output should be 11, right? So let's check. You run this one, you will get 11, right? If you remove this space, you will get 10, right? So space is also considered as what you call a character. So this can be useful in the future. That's why I explain this particular function, right? So next, string indexing. So during the presentation, I told you that, and at the beginning of the lecture, so this is strings are sequence objects, right? Sequence means you can number and retrieve that particular character using that index. So we use brackets, right? So when we call indexing related to an object, right? So this is considered as a string object. So this is a string object. This is a variable. This is the object, right? So this is the variable. This is the object, and this object is a string, right? So we have assigned it. So if I run this one, and if I check, so this assignment is okay. So we have assigned a variable to a string object successfully, right? So we can print this one as well, right? So this is just checking. And if we print this one, still we will get the output as we expect. So assignment is successful, right? So now let's start indexing. So if we go back to the code and so this is what, and what is this? What is this? What is this? So indexing, we can check how it happens. So this is the zeroth index. This is the first, second, third, fourth, and the space is fifth. Okay, and this is sixth, seven, eight, nine. Sorry, this L is 10 and D is 11. That's how indexing has happened, right? So including the space. So can you show me, or can you cast the answers for this? So we are calling the zeroth number letter. So can somebody show me the answer in chat? I mean, not show. Tell me the answer. You can share it through the chat. What would be the element that we'll be retrieving from the here? What is the element? So S is the string or the variable that we have assigned, and we are calling the zeroth index element, right? So what is the output? Can somebody please answer? Can you guys hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If so, please, somebody please answer. Or you can type if you don't understand, don't understand. So what will be the output of this one? So you have a string which is called S, right? And the word is hello world, right? And we are calling here the zeroth index letter. And what would be the output? Yeah, so H, right? So this is the output. If you run, this one will be H, right? So what is the output from here? Obviously, the next letter, 0, and then the other one is E, right? What will be the output from here? The last one. We are using fifth. We want to retrieve the fifth index one. So what is the output? What do you think? So this will be actually nothing, right? So why is that? So fifth index position is actually the space, right? So this is the zeroth index. Yeah, so this space. That's correct. So this is actually fifth index position. This is 0. You can count and see. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and space is the zeroth index position. So actually you will see something like this. Actually, this is space. It's a character for Python, right? Okay. So thank you very much who participated in the discussion. I mean, otherwise this become boring. Okay. Okay. Now indexing is what we discussed here, right? String indexing. That means we call a specific letter to uh, we retrieve a specific letter. That is what we do in indexing. But the next available option is that slicing, right? So slicing means instead of uh, grabbing one element, only one letter, you can grab several letters of several portions, right? So for that, I told you that there's a specific syntax. So this is the syntax. So start, stop, and step, right? This one, start, stop, and step. So this is the index that syntax that we'll be using. So same principle applies from here. So if you do it like this, right? So there's start, but there's no stop. And if you do not define the third option, it will always consider as that we are going one by one, right? One letter by one letter. That's what the Python will understand, right? So the start point is here. So then we have the column, right? And the second condition is actually empty. The start is there, stop is empty, and step size will be one by one. So in this specific case, you will see output all the letters apart from H, right? If you run this one, see. So zeroth one is gone. So 0 is actually the H, right? So H is gone. From the first index position, it is there, right? So we have grabbed all the elements from all the elements apart from letter H from our string, right? But slicing does not affect the original variable. So we do not have reassign anything here. What we have done is we are just retrieving data, right? So we are just retrieving data, and if you check the original one, no harm has come to that one. The original data still is there. So can you now see the importance of that, right? So from slicing, with using slicing functions, you can retrieve whatever the data that you need, but it does not affect the original variable. So that is the advantage. So, okay, so this is starting point. So what about this one? So this particular case, in this particular scenario, what happened is that there's no starting point available, right? So end is there. Of course, I told you if you do not specify the third option, that means if you go back to the slide, so start is there. Sorry, start is not there, stop is there, but step, if you do not indicate step, it will use the step size as 1. So that is the default step size, right? So this start is not there, so it will automatically take 0 as the first thing, starting index position. And we have going up to, so I want to stress this one. We are going up to third index. Up to third index, right? So pay your attention here. So up to means it will not include the third index, right? But until that. So let me run this one. So right, before I'm going there, let's do it manually, right? So this is 0th index. This is first, second, third. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, right? What your the answer that may come to your head is this will be go up to this L, right? Because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, up to this L, it will go. That is what the answer come to your mind. But in Python, this is not what happens, right? So if you run this one, you will see that it will only go up to the third index position. Only one L will be visible, right? So only this one is visible. So this up to sort of indexing is pretty much available throughout Python programming, right? So apart from the other programs, programming languages, the Python uses this up to, not including this one. So this up to but not including version very frequently, right? Unlike other programming languages. So when you are doing this indexing and slicing, please be mindful about that. And always pay attention to this specific thing, up to but not including, right? Okay, any questions? You can answer through chat box. I mean, you can post your questions through chat box if you have any. Okay, so no questions. Okay, good. Okay, so we discussed about starting point and we discussed about the ending part, right? So if you have, you don't need to use this specific case because if you type only, like if you type this, it will automatically give you all the details. But just to make clear the concept, so if you have no starting point and no ending point, that means you are retrieving all the data, right? You are retrieving all the data from your string. So if you run this one, so see, it will still give you everything. You don't have to use this one, just confirming the concept that we have. Okay, so we discussed about positive indexing, right? So the way that it's going forward. So now we have to discuss about the negative indexing as well. So negative indexing means, I told you that if we use, so here, let me go back to the slides. So here, can you see that? So in the reverse indexing, no matter the length of string, how many elements that you have on your string, the last letter will be -1. And the letter before the last is -2, likewise, right? So zeroth index will not be changed, right? But the negative index, the last letter will be negative index 1, always negative index 1. So far that doesn't, I mean, the length of the number of letters, that doesn't affect, right? So let's check same thing here. So can you see? So S is still, so our variable is still hello world. So what would be the output from here? So we are expecting -1. That means the last letter. So what would be the output? According to the things that we discussed so far, what would be the output of this particular line? So we are calling -1 index position. If you want, you can run this one in your Python environments and see the output. Somebody, please. You can send it through the chat box. It's okay. I mean, even if you make a mistake, it's fine. But I don't think that you will make any mistakes. We are still doing the basics. So what would be the output? Somebody? Okay, so if I run this one, since nobody answers, if I run this one, see, it will grab the last index letter, right? And it will show, right? Just another thing that you can do with this one, right? So we are grabbing the last index letter here. So this is actually slicing, one of slicing techniques, right? So this is start, this is end, and step is default. That's why the third, the data after third semicolon is missing. So this means we are grabbing everything except the last letter, right? If I run this one, see, last letter is not printed or will be not returned. So this is another method, right? So you can do the same thing by putting 11 here. It will also output the same, right? But if you do not know the length of this, sorry, if you do not know the length of the word, or if you don't want to count, actually, right? In that case, what you can do is just simply put -1 in here. So it will return every element except the last letter, right? So that is a set of slicing, right? And the simplest form of slicing we discussed on the start and stop data are given there, and the step size is not mentioned. Sorry, somebody has asked a question. Yeah, so -1 means actually the last letter. Let me show you this one again. So here, see, -1 means last letter, right? The one that after that is -2, right? So this is for hello. So should be always 0, right? The first letter will always be 0. This is 0, right? But the last letter always be -1. It doesn't matter the length of the line, right? So hope you can understand. Okay, right. So okay, so we discussed about. So we discussed about simplest form of slicing. Now let's check slicing with actually step size, right? So I told you before, if we do not indicate the last argument, well, argument means step size, it will automatically take the step size as 1. So 1 by 1 it will go through. So everything here has happened like that. So here also the step size we have not indicated, so the step size will consider that as 1. Here also we have not considered any step sizes, so it will automatically take step size as 1. So but still we can indicate the step size. So this means, this particular code line means we do not have asked or given any arguments for the starting point and also the ending point, right? Starting point and ending point, we have not given any arguments, right? So Python will automatically select everything. Sorry. Select everything as the argument. So it will output all these letters, right? And the step size is 1, right? So what actually happens is it will output everything. Doesn't matter because we have not defined any arguments for the first 2, and the step size is 1. So it will output everything, right? So interesting thing happens here, right? So we have not given any starting point and we have not given any ending point, but the step size is 2, right? So that means the counting starts from the beginning, from the 0th index position, right? So this will be 0. Sorry, this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Okay. So if the step size is 2, that means starting from here, and if it go there, it will go there, it will go here, it will go here, it will go here, right? So what the output that we'll get include only the letters indexed as 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, right? So if you run it, so if you run this one, See, this is the output that we get. Space also missing because it's the fifth index position is ignored, right? So this is what you call stepping, right? Introducing stepping to your slicing, and you can do something cool as well. See, so if you want to reverse everything, right? You want to reverse everything, right? You can introduce -1 as the step size. So if you run this one, see, it will definitely switch and show you the strings, right? So this is interesting fact that if you introduce or if you feed the argument as -1, the what do you call the strings will be reversed, right? So this is actually a property of slicing of strings. So any questions from this part? So if you have anything, please ask. Okay, right. So now we discuss about different strings, how to create a string, how to do the string indexing and string slicing, right? So then we'll discuss about properties of strings, right? What are the attributes? What you can do to a set of strings to modify it or do whatever the operations, right? So one interesting string property is that strings are immutable. Have you heard this word before? Immutable. This word. Immutability. This one. So immutability, that means you cannot change that particular elements. I mean, whatever the thing is in element, right? So it cannot be changed or it cannot be replaced, right? So let's take the initial string set right here. So if I run this one, we have not made any modifications to this. So it will still have, so using indexing, let's try to replace the zeroth index position. So zeroth index position is H, right? So let's try to replace it with letter X, right? So we retrieve that data, get the zeroth index position, and we try to replace it. So this is the code that we will try to do. But see, it will give you an error. And you will receive an error, and it will explain that string objects do not support item assignment, right? So that means it will not allow you to assign or replace something inside this string, right? So that is what you call immutability, right? So we cannot replace an element inside a string. So that is uh, what happens if you want to directly replace something. But you can actually add two strings. It's possible to add two strings, right? So as an example, say, so some kind of a program, right? You will need first name to indicate the first name and last name separately, right? And after retrieving the full name and last name separately, say that you want to display the full name without affecting the first name and last name. So still you can access those separately, right? So as an example, this is a variable, and we have assigned first name as AA, right? The last name and we have assigned this BBB, right? So now you need to pin the full name. Say you want to access the full, you want to have the full name of this person. So full name can be retrieved by the first name plus last name, right? And we are going to assign it to this variable. So let's try it and see. So if you run this one, so now it has registered the first name and last name. So let me check. So first name, right? So if I run, see, say AA, the last name. So see it's BBB, okay? So if I concatenate, that means if I add these two letters and if I assign this one, we can do that. See? So the first name is there, last name is there, we can add. And we are printing this full name. So we have added this to the last, right? So instead of what do you call assigning a simple element, you can reassign this everything to a string. That is possible. You can't replace an element one by one. That is not possible because it is immutable. Strings are immutable, right? So in this case, so S is actually what? Initially H is actually this, sorry, S is actually the hello world. So let's check before this one. Okay, so S, if you check, this is come out as hello world, right? So if you add this concatenate me to original S and reassign S, and if you run this one, print, see, it will show hello world. This is the original one. Space, because we have space here. Sorry. And this concatenate me part, right? So now the S is modified. So we have modified it by assigning or reassigning everything here. So the out, what you can understand is from this part is that you cannot modify a string, the elements of the strings, right? You cannot modify elements of the strings because strings are what you call immutable objects, right? But you can add or you can concatenate this part of string to the original one, right? Like this one, this scenario, and see like this scenario, the full name, last name, sorry, so first name, last name, and you can add it to give you the full name. Like that scenarios, you can of course concatenate. Other than that, it's not possible to replace a single letter or single element in the Python, right? In strings, regarding to strings. Okay, so we can add, of course, and you can multiply letters as well. These are like Python tricks, right? Because this is community supported programming language, there are a lot of tricks available in Python. Can be useful, sometimes useless, but interesting to know that the things are there. Like see, so we can use multiplication to create a repetition, right? So like this, C. So if you multiply this, now this what do you call this variable has the letter Z stored here, right? So if you multiply it by 10, so it will give you 10 Zs, right? So can be important. I mean, depends, right? It's kind of a trick actually. So any questions regarding this one, the immutability part of strings, the concatenation? Do you have any questions? Of course, you can run these things in your Python environment and see, okay, whether this actually happens or not. So it's important to do these things by yourself. Any questions? Any concerns? Okay, so we discussed about creating strings and some important properties of strings, right? And indexing, slicing. And then we have to learn about the basic methods or functions associated with strings, right? So the importance of the advantage of Python is that there are a lot of methods developed by the programmers associated with the objects that we are working with, right? So in what do you call in you have learned object oriented programming, right? So Python is an object oriented programming language. So everything is considered here as an object. So strings also uh, considered as objects. So it has methods, inbuilt methods. So it will give you extra benefit when you are working with these object structures, right? So let's learn about a little bit of these building methods related to uh, strings, right? So let me run this one. So initiate, we have initiated. So if you want to access the list of uh, methods associated with your object, so it can be a string or it can be a number or anything. So if you just type S means any the variable that you have assigned, and then you can type dot, right? And press tab, right? So if you press tab, so here if I press tab after the dot, so you will be prompted with the list of basic methods that associate with this particular data type. I see a lot of uh, lot of methods are associated with this one. So we don't have time to go through one by one. So it's your responsibility to go to the Python documentary and see. But let's try some simple methods associated with strings, right? So if you use this per method, so always you have to select the method and then you have to use parentheses, empty parentheses, right? So if you use upper, it will make every letter here as an uppercase letter, right? So if you use lower, if you run this one, it will create everything. So here this H, B, and W is capital letters, right? If you run this one, it will create everything lowercase letter, right? So there's interesting function called split, right? So split means you can separate the words where there is a space. So because we are not passing any argument in this particular scenario, right? So we are not passing any arguments. But if you without passing any arguments, if you run the method, right? So say run the method called split. So it will create a list of, we are going to discuss about this next, right? List of words, and it will separate the words where there is space. So the space is there, so this word is separated. This space is there, and these two words are separated, right? And it will create a separate 3-element list, right? We are going to discuss about this next, right? And it's not only space. you can pass an argument, right? Can pass an argument to check whether not to check. As you required, you can split your word. So if I put E here, it, it will till this H, it will create one element and it will split. And LLO, it will create another element until B, right? And it will split here because we have a E here. And this one will be separated to another element. So if I run this one, see, so H is there and it will be get separated, right? Until it come across the next E, right? And then it will continue until the last element. So this split function can also be useful sometimes, but there are a lot of functions as I showed you associated with strings, right? So it's a kind of your part to check about these things as much as possible by yourself, right? So any questions from here? Do you have any concerns? Can you all give me 5 minutes? Wait like this, right? Okay. So painting formatting, I will be doing separately. It's a little bit longer version I want to discuss, not a single line. So we'll discuss that one, of course. So before that, so I want to introduce some questions, right? I want you to answer some questions. So please send your answers through the chat box, right? So just to refresh memory, we just did this one. So strings are immutable, true or false? What is your answer? Are you guys sleeping? Is string immutable or not? Please. So strings are actually immutable. So this answer for this one is actually true, right? So what is the answer for this one? Please answer through chat box. What is the answer of this particular scenario? Yes, this first one is true. Strings are actually immutable. The answer is true. Strings are immutable, right? We discussed. So what is the answer for this one? Question 2. What is the output? HEOL. So this, yeah, the answer is actually E, right? So this is the zeroth in this question is O. Sorry, zeroth in this question is H. Second, first index question is E. So we are retrieving E from the string. So answer is E. Okay. So what is this? What is the answer here? So we are slicing. What is the answer? Sorry, this one got disconnected. Can somebody make me host? Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Okay. So we were actually talking about this, right? Okay. So we were discussing about this one. So what is the answer for this one? The particular, right? So uh, okay. So the answer is actually, because this is zeroth index, the first, second. So we are starting from the second onwards, right? So you will get as answer as NMY actually, right? So if you are not sure, we can, okay, see here, okay? So S is equal to Sammy, right? Okay, so we are retrieving, or we are, what do you call, split the answer from here. It's called C. So it's actually MMY, right? This is the answer. So the concept called up to is different from this one, right? So up to means it's a different concept. So the starting points always include the starting index, right? But if I type here 2, so ending point, it actually excludes. So answer of this one, so this is the ending point. I just modified the code. So this is zeroth, first, second, right? So we will get only these two letters as the output, right? See, like this. But if you are going to do it as starting point, you will retrieve, you will get all the letters, including the index, right? So keep this one on mind, right? So it's a little bit important thing. Okay. So hopefully you can now understand about the basics about strings, right? Right. So first one is this one, and the answer for this one is 01 right here. This one, right? Okay. So hopefully you can now understand basics of strings and string operations, basics, okay? And after discussing about all the data types, we will be discussing something called string formatting, right? Something called string formatting that will be printing formatting. That is a little bit lengthier section. So I want you to do it once we uh, finish all these basic data types, right? So next basic data type that we'll be discussing is lists, right? Let's focus on this presentation. Okay. Right. Mm, right. Sorry. So similar to uh, what we have discussed with strings, lists, sorry, lists are also considered as ordered sequence, right? Ordered sequences objects, right? So it can similar to the similar to the strings. You can access the elements of these lists using indexing and slicing. Everything is there, right? And now, when we were working with strings, it can hold only letters, right? Letters or characters, right? There are no integers. So even though numbers are inside, it will be considered as a character, not a integer or a float. But when it comes to lists, you can have several types of data in one object, right? So we use square brackets and commas to create a list, right? So this is a list which is created. So it is, what is the data type? So these are integer data types, right? And you separate each element using a comma. So that is very simple to create. So this syntax or creating list syntax understood by Python, right? So whenever you assign a list to a variable, Python will consider that variable as list as well, and you can do all the method and functions related to that as we discussed, and as I told you before, the indexing and slicing also available. And there's also a function called nested list, right? So maybe you may have learned this one in previous programming languages, nesting. Anyway, we are going to discuss. So nesting also available in this, and also number of very useful methods and functions are available in list, right? The list data type is one of the key data types that we will be coming across all through the Python programming, right? Okay, so let's jump to Jupyter Notebook, right? It will be easier for you to understand them. Okay, this list. So in this list, as I told you, it's sequenced, right? So unlike strings, the elements inside a list are mutable, what you call, right? So you can replace or modify the elements available inside as you require, right? That is the advantage of it. So in this particular section, I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to finish this one, but let's go as far as possible. So we'll discuss about how to create a list and how this indexing and sizing works, right? And the basic list methods. Methods means the functions that associated with list. Do you remember that I hit the tab and you get the list of functions? So things like that, right? And about the nesting list, right? And some of there are comprehensions that are associated with uh, lists. So those are the basic 5 points that we are going to discuss, right? Okay, so first, creating a list. We start and create all outputs. Okay. So here. So having only integer numbers, right? Only integer numbers are there. So only one type of data, right? But it doesn't matter. You can create a list that comprise of different kind of data. So, right, this one is a string, obviously, right? Integer. And this is a float, and this is a string as well, and this is an integer. So several number of data types are available inside this particular variable, right? Particular list. So if you run this one, it will not cause any error. It will accept, right? So the each element separated by the comma can be accessed separately, right? Indexed, as I told you. So we are going to discuss this one very soon. And having separate types of having separate types of data does not affect the construction of to identify number of elements available in the list, right? So now as an example, this particular list, how many elements are there? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 elements are there. So if you run this length function, so it will give you that, it will show that 5 elements are available, right? So we can use that length function as well. So I hope that you don't have any questions regarding creating or initiating a string, a list. Sorry about that. My internet got disconnected. So let us quickly summarize this one and okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, so right, so this is indexing, as I told you. So we are using a similar way of syntax. So you have your variable name, and within square brackets you are indicating the index, right? So if you run this one, so you will get the output as 1, which is the 0th index position. So similarly, this is slicing, right? So we have uh, from first to fourth one up to fourth index position, we are grabbing everything, right? So if you run this one, see, we have retrieve all the data necessary, right, from these 3. And finally, you can grab up to third index position, right? If you run this snippet, So you will see 1, 2, sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3 means this number 4. So up to that, you will get your output. So okay, so rest of the things we'll discuss next week. So concatenation and everything related to lists. Okay, so hopefully next week I'll be able to come to the lectures by time, right? So if you have any questions, you can inform about this one to your demonstrator, right, Mr. Prasad, or you can directly email me if you have any questions, right? So I will try to upload the things that we have discussed so far to the LMS, right? So any questions you have until now, up to this point? Any questions? No? Okay. So please install this Python environment, right? So we'll be using this one, regularly, more often. So you can participate in Q&A whenever you have any questions, right? So right. So okay. So let's conclude this one today, and let's pick up this rest of it from next week, right? Okay. Thank you very much.